Okay.
I know.
Well, like we were saying earlier, Paul and everybody, we'll probably be a little bumpy on this, which shouldn't be a whole lot different from our normal meetings anyway, but until we get used to this format. Deanna, are you there?
Just 1 second, I'll fire her back up. There she is. And she'll just unmute herself.
Okay.
I guess even though we are Zooming, I guess we'll do our roll call.
Excellent. Chairperson Brownlee. Peter Creel.
Present.
Norm DeBuck. Is Norm
Nope.
not present?
He should be here.
He may zoom in at some point.
All right. I'll move on. Tony Gibson.
He's also probably the same status.
All right. Okay. Ron Merritt.
Ron was with us.
He's just,
here.
Ron, you got to go off mute.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, good, good. I'm in the basement because the dogs and the birds and all the pets are too loud, and I had to come down here by the fish aquarium. It's a little more peaceful.
Looks like you're asleep.
Okay. And finally, Benjamin Ross.
Present.
All right. So we have quorum.
Board representative.
Oh,
Trustee White.
I'm here. I'm here.
okay. Sorry.
Hear you, Paul.
Okay.
I know.
Our first test is pretty successful. Everybody got the documents that was sent to them, so you've all had a chance to look at tonight's agenda. Are there anything that we need to add to tonight's business? Hearing none, would somebody like to motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
Motion approved.
Okay, that's Peter. And yeah, as we go through this, maybe raise your hand too. Sometimes when you look at the screen, it's hard to say. Okay, so support?
Support.
Favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, we'll go ahead with the agenda as submitted. We have the minutes. from the-
Chairman, could I ask that you let me know who was the one to motion and the support, because I'm not familiar with names and faces yet.
Sure. Okay, Peter was first, Benjamin second.
Thank you.
Chairman Brownlee, if you like, we'd like to have Ryan give the how for the visitors and for this and for the members of the commission real quick. Ryan,
Okay.
are you available?
Hi there. Yes. Thank you, Matt. So for public, when the time comes for public comment, to make a comment, all you'll have to do is use the raise your hand function, and then I will call you out and you'll state your name and address for the record. And then we will, someone just put up their hand there. And you can also use the chat window as well. So once public comment comes, you'll do that and we will call on you.
Let me be clear, and I don't know, you said, did you say the term public comment?
Yep.
What you mean by public comment?
So Chair Brownlee, we're giving the public an opportunity to speak on any of the 4 agenda items that are happening.
Okay.
So as each agenda item occurs, we'll announce and let anyone speak if they wish. So for example, the first agenda item, Matt will introduce it. Mark Gross will give a presentation. Environmental Commission will be able to ask questions of Mark. And then after you have all of your questions answered, we'll open it up for the public if they have any questions.
Okay, got that. If I fail to ask, correct me. Okay, so so anything else Ryan has for us?
I am all set.
Okay, thank you very much. Minutes of our February meeting. I'm sure everybody has had a chance to review them. Any comments, additions, deletions, typos? Hearing none, would somebody like to motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Motion approved.
Second,
And second, was that you again, Ben?
second was Peter.
Oh, okay. Who was first there?
Ron Merritt. Ron Merritt.
Okay. It's hard. I didn't have you when I heard a voice, but I didn't have you. Okay. That Deanna?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Any communications from anybody that's not connected with tonight's items? We talked, but not being here. Okay. Let's move on then to our new business. And Matt, from this point, we'll let you lead the intro here, starting with the French Landing Dam discussion.
Yes, thank you. And one of the things that since I want to thank the commission tonight for being brave enough to jump into this new technology with their first Zoom meeting. With it, there's going to be a lot of bumps and learning curves tonight. But one of the things we found is very effective is when you are not speaking, to make sure that you mute yourself so that background noise is kept to a minimum. It allows the speaker to get the full attention of the board. If at any time you have a question, commission members, you can just raise your hand like this, and we will and you'll be recognized by the chair and moved on. So I want to thank you for participating in this. Tonight is a different type of environmental commission meeting. One of the things that we're doing tonight is we have an agenda that has a lot of items on it that people are very interested in, and since we haven't met for a while, one of those items is the first one, which is an update on the French Landing Dam. As you know, the Edenville and the Edenville Dam and the Midland, the two dams in Midland that failed due to various reasons, have gotten a lot of people concerned, and rightly so, about the dams in Michigan. And there's a lot of questions about are the dams in Michigan safe? What's the process for safety? How these things are reported? And one of the other problems is that there's not a lot of physical information that you can get your hands on and read because of the nature of dams and how they operate. So one of the things that we wanted to do today was provide a opportunity for the commission and the public who are watching at home and members who are attendees who are participating tonight to listen to our dam operator of the French Landing Dam, Eagle Creek Renewable Energy. Eagle Creek has been our partner now for the last few years, and prior to that, it was STS Hydro who was purchased by Eagle Creek. So we have almost the same cast of characters, just a different management team, different company, but the same commitment to providing a safe hydroelectric dam for our community. And we all know how important Belleville Lake is. And fortunately, so does Eagle Creek Renewable Energy. Tonight, I've brought in, I asked the company to send me their best, and they have. Mark Gross is the Senior Vice President of Operations at Eagle Creek Renewable Energy. He has over 20 years experience in hydroelectric operations, and quite frankly is the best person to talk to this group. He is enjoying beautiful sunny weather down in North Carolina, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, and so we have 90-degree weather today, so I think we've been blessed by Mark's presence. So what I think is the best way is to give kind of a very brief synopsis of how this will go. I'm going to let Mark talk a little bit about the dam, about dam safety, about why some documents are out there and some aren't. Give a kind of an update on French Landing. Then we'll answer. He'll be able to answer some of our questions, because I know I have a few that I'd like to answer. And then what a little different than normal, because this is such a public issue and affects so many people, we're going to take questions from our attendees for Mark as well. So, Mark, if you'd like, please tell us a little bit about yourself, the dam, and the wonderful world of dam safety.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you all for inviting me to join in this. And I do appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate the concerns that folks have living both upstream and downstream of dams. I don't want to take up too much time just talking in general about dam safety or the French Landing Dam in particular, saving time for the questions so I can really get to the things that you all have concerns with, and hopefully I can help answer those things. So, but first, I have been in the industry for 20 years now with Eagle Creek, and came to Eagle Creek through an acquisition of the company I worked for prior to, which was Cube Hydro Partners. As with Cube and certainly with Eagle Creek, I want everybody to understand that dam safety, public safety, and employee safety is our #1 priority. Nothing comes before that, and we live that. It's our value, and we start each day with discussions around safety, just to continue to emphasize that priority. So as you probably know, we're regulated by the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. They oversee hydropower plants outside of the Corps of Engineers and the Bureau of Reclamation in the United States, where electricity is being generated. And they have a very rigorous program for dam safety. We work closely with the dam safety team with FERC, the Chicago Regional Office, as well as their other offices across the country where we have plants, to ensure that we have the same understanding that they have regarding the safety of the structures, the performance of the structures, and the things that we need to do to maintain the integrity of those structures. We have annual inspections. We had an inspection again last year with the FERC. We've got some work planned later this year to shore up some riprap that has eroded on the upstream side. I know many of you folks that live around the lakes recognize the impact of wave action on the lakes, and over the past, I would say 15 or 20 years, we've seen, I know in many of our reservoirs, a higher use of wakeboard boats or wakeboarding boats that are designed to make more waves than an ordinary boat, and that also has an increased impact on shorelines, not just at the dam, but all around typical reservoirs. So we're going to, of course, get busy and replace some of the riprap on the dam to repair some of that erosion, and then we're going to perform a structural inspection of the bypass gates, just to ensure that we are identifying all the deficiencies that may be there, and keep up with taking care of the things as we know how to do. So again, we're regulated by the FERC. We work hand in hand with them on dam safety. And as far as the French Landing Dam goes, and Matthew forwarded an article that was written in one of the local papers, and it was very misleading, I think, in the way it was written regarding the dam. They mentioned that they tried to imply, I guess, that the fact that it's classified as a high hazard dam implied that there was some instability or something wrong with that particular dam, and that's not the case at all. They rate the dams in that sort of a classification by the impact it could have if the dam were to fail. So really, you look downstream of the dam and see if there's the potential for loss of life or high value properties and things of that nature. So that's how this particular dam is classified as high hazard, and many of our dams are. So there is quite a bit of work that goes on just to maintain the dam, the integrity of the dam, and do the things that we need to do from a compliance standpoint to keep it in good shape. There's nothing wrong with the fact that it's being classified as a high hazard. Doesn't mean anything about the stability or the integrity of the dam itself. So in French Landing, there are no issues. I think that the article did cite that the FERC also stated that the dam was in good shape. So we are consistent there. Now, Matthew mentioned some of the documentation being classified, or really it's considered critical infrastructure information, or critical electricity infrastructure information, CEII. We're obligated by the FERC again to keep what we deem to be sensitive information from the public in general, but we can, with the right non-disclosure agreements and things, we can share that information. You know, I believe that the township is a co-licensee, so in that regard, they obviously have the obligation and the same boundaries that we have and how we can handle that information. And we have emergency action plans that, of course, we share with emergency management providers that are potentially impacted in the event that there was an issue with the dam or a dam failure. So even though there's no reason to believe that the dam is going to fail, FERC requires us to have an emergency action plan, and we exercise it based on a potential worst case scenario, just so in the event that you know, something were to happen, something that is unforeseen by anyone, that we have the right plans in place, and we exercise those plans to make sure that we can react, as well as emergency management providers, service providers, and highway patrol, law enforcement, and all the folks who get involved can be notified as quickly as possible and taken care of. I'll stop there and see if you want to jump to some questions, and like I said, I'm happy to entertain anything you have.
So this is the opportunity now for the members of the commission to ask any questions they have, and I just wanted to, Mark, I kind of wanted to just reiterate one thing from what you said, and I want to make sure I understand it. Just because a dam is a high hazard dam, that doesn't mean it's unsafe, right?
That's right. That's correct. It has nothing to do with the integrity of the dam. Those ratings are strictly developed based on what's downstream of the dam.
Okay. Okay. And the I guess the question on everyone's mind, the French Landing Dam, what can you say about its just in very short, clear statement, its safety and its current condition?
Yeah, the short statement is pretty much similar to what the FERC said, that it's performing as designed. There's no concerns with. We do something called a potential failure mode analysis, and it's something that we revisit every 5 years to just postulate how could, all dams are different. Every one of them is different. They got different situations, different types of construction, but we postulate how could this dam potentially fail, and then we go through. We pick each of those scenarios, and we go through and talk about the features of the dam and the things that we do that make it not likely for that to happen, or I don't want to say impossible, because that's things can happen, but within the realm of possibility, we understand how the dam is performing and operating, and so we exercise those things and look at them every 5 years to be sure that we understand what's going on. We look at the instrumentation and data again to make sure that we understand to the best humanly possible the condition of the dam and how it's performing. And we had an inspection in 2019 with the FERC, and again, there's nothing wrong with the dam. Everything is fine.
Thank you, Chairman.
I got a bunch of questions, but first of all, Ben, Peter, I want to, if you got some, I want to give everybody time to open your mic if you want to jump in, or if in the process of me asking some here, maybe I'm asking one that you had on your notes. So maybe I'll just jump in and go ahead. Matt, you addressed the very first thing I did. And when I was listening, as I said, well, you got a high hazard classification at the same time, but that doesn't mean it's unsafe. I've heard the words, but for an average citizen concerned, especially people in Michigan that saw what happened up in Milford, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. High hazard. First of all, who gives it? Is it the Army Corps of Engineers that classifies the dam?
Well, the Army Corps of Engineers has their methodology, and I think it's very similar if not identical to what the FERC uses.
So whose classification says it's high hazard?
Well, we're under the FERC's regulations, so we go by the FERC.
Okay, and let's go back one more time, but it doesn't mean it's unsafe. I still have a hard time crossing that bridge, but if it's not unsafe, then why do I have this agency say it's high hazard? I'm still struggling with that a little bit.
Okay. So again, it has everything to do with population downstream and the proximity. So it really has, it's a completely independent, their classifications of those ratings are completely independent of the integrity of the dam. In fact, folks that come up with those things really don't have intimate knowledge of the performance of the dam. They look at the topography. In fact, we're obligated every year to do a survey downstream to see what has changed. Is there a new housing development that's on the banks of the river just downstream now? Or did somebody build a shopping center or something like that? That's what the hazard rating is about. And they use that hazard rating, David, to determine what level of dam safety compliance needs to be applied to that particular structure.
Okay, so maybe I can clarify. So it's not so much about what condition the dam is in, as much as if there were some catastrophic failure, what is the danger downstream? Maybe
That is correct. That is correct. It has absolutely nothing to do with the existing condition of the dam. Absolutely nothing to do with that.
Okay, all right, that helps immensely. Who owns and operates the Ford Lake Dam?
That I don't know.
Really?
I think it's operated by Ypsilanti Township, but I can double check. I actually, the guy's name is on the tip of my tongue. He's in our dam network that we're part of, and I see him all the time. I've gone to his tabletop, and I can't remember if he is like Mark, a co-leasee or a co-licensee, or if he's an actual township employee. I can find out and double check for you.
Good. I'd been asked that question by a resident before, and I said I had no idea. But okay, Mark, let me take you through a scenario here. Probably the worst case scenario for Belleville residents, other than our own dam failing, but would be Ford Lake catastrophic failure. And I think Ford Lake is a severe risk dam. Am I correct on that? We're a high hazard, but I've seen some documentation that says that the Ford Lake Dam is a severe risk hazard. Do you have any knowledge of that, or?
I do not. I'm assuming from what you're saying, it's upstream.
Yes, it is.
Yes. No, I don't have any knowledge of that facility.
So to help Mark out, Ford Lake is the immediate water body to the west of Belleville Lake. So the dams are in series: Ford Lake, then a small Huron River connection, and then it goes right into Belleville Lake. So it's a very short area between us and the Ford Lake Hydro Dam. But I can also check on the classification for you, Chairman Brownlee.
Yes, please. Mark, again, has your group ever gone through a scenario of if there were a catastrophic failure of Ford Lake Dam, what the impact would be on French Landing?
I would imagine so, because and I don't know again who the owner is and under what regulatory body they fall. But my guess is that we would be a part of their emergency action plan and their call down. So in that regard, and I haven't been involved, I haven't been around long enough to be a part of one of their functional exercises or even a tabletop exercise. But that in those scenarios, and that's what if they're under the FERC, and I think even the Army Corps, they would have to operate an EAP and have those functional exercises. And in that scenario, in fact, you're probably a holder of one of their EAP documents. And that would tell you that's exactly what that document is for, is to tell you what would be inundated and how quickly in the event that there was a catastrophic failure of that dam upstream?
Yeah, I mean, I keep looking at this scenario here and the proximity of that. I mean, certainly if there was such a failure in a dam that's also at probably high risk here, you know, that huge amount of volume certainly can't be handled by our floodgates on our dam. Typically, the scenario is like we saw up in Milford, where the water starts to go over the wall. And that's probably the biggest danger, assuming our dam is structurally sound in terms of the floodgates, whatever. Once the water goes over, I mean, if you had concrete runs along that whole thing, the water would pitch down. But what happens is it just erodes the berm at that point in time. And all you need is a small breach, which becomes a big breach. So, you know, my biggest concern is in view of what's happened in Milford is the impact on Ford if they experience that on French Landing Dam. And that's why I wondered if anybody's ever walked through a scenario, whether it's the engineers or for their operating license, of what would happen. Somebody's done. I'm sure they have.
I will say that I did participate in one of their safety meetings. They usually have a safety meeting, an official safety meeting once per year with all the members that are on the emergency action plan. We are plan holder of or plan call down person for their emergency action plan. If something does happen at that dam, just like if something happened at our dam, there is a call tree and a list of actions that are taken. They're very well thought out and practiced. Phone calls go to our public safety dispatch and our police department. They also go to the township supervisor, as well as almost all the organizations that are downstream of the dam. So there is a significant plan, just like ours, that is associated with Ford Lake.
Yeah. And again, I would say, what is the likely, I guess what I'm looking for is what is the likely scenario? I know there are steps to be taken, including, you know, low-level property owners in Van Buren Township. My biggest concern is, does the scenario include or possibly include the loss of our dam or a breach of the earth wall there?
I would think Mark would be the best person to tell you if he can even talk about that.
Mark, can you talk about that?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know the size of the impoundment. I'm not familiar with anything that's upstream. So I would say that if you looked at the emergency action plan that you have for their facility, it will have that information. You know, you don't tip it. You know, it's a good question, and I'm not sure it's been completely modeled what the impact downstream. What we can surmise is we can look at what the inflow would be versus what the inflow the French Landing Dam is designed for, and make a comparison there to see if the failure of that dam will cause a failure of the French Landing Dam. But you're asking very good questions that should be addressed upstream.
I sure hope to believe somebody's asked and answered me now. It's just, to me, it's like job one when you have the responsibility. You know, what is the scenario? What is the likely outcome of a catastrophic failure of Ford Lake Dam? I mean, certainly, I hope we never experience that. But as a resident of this area, I'm curious. Who has the downriver liability if anything happened to French Landing Dam? Again, catastrophic failure or something. Land, property, loss of life, anything down. Where's the? I know at one time we were concerned about it. I think when we had ownership of the dam, and that's why we would lower it in the spring and go through safety precautions. But ultimately, whose responsibility if there is damage, either to property, human life downstream from ours, if there's a failure?
It's probably a better question for a lawyer, but my first guess would be the owner.
Which would be you.
No, we're a co-license holder and a leaser. A lesser. Oh. We do not own the facility.
That's something I didn't understand. Who is the owner?
The township is the owner of French Landing Dam.
Sure.
That was part and parcel of the deal back in 86, 87, when when DTE turned the reins over. Some of you guys were around when that happened. But whenever it was, whatever year it was, DTE transferred ownership to the township. The township made the repairs to the dam because they were going to remove the dam. So the township made the repairs to the dam and took ownership, and then worked to find a partner, a leasee, to operate the dam for hydroelectric energy.
Okay. I guess that was a misunderstanding I've had for some time here. One other thing is we talked about information that's classified because it's a FERC license. Give me an example. When you say classified information, what kind of information is classified when it comes to that dam? What kind of things could I ask that I wouldn't get an answer to?
Like like the question you're asking, what would be the impact if that dam failed? You basically think about it. You just think about it this way. This is the way it really got serious after 9/11, and what a terrorist could do to a hydroelectric facility or anything in this country. So we have to look at the information that we have and determine if that information was public, could it be used in some sort of a terrorist way? So,
okay.
For example, if there was a secret tunnel that went to the bottom of the dam, we wouldn't want that to be public knowledge. We wouldn't put that on the internet. If you wanted to know what the impact would be of destroying that dam, we just wouldn't want that to be on the internet, not just for your dam, but for all dams. So the FERC makes it our responsibility to determine what information is critical infrastructure information, and we have to keep that secure.
Okay, understood. Would that also include the answer to the question I asked a little while ago, that what would happen to our dam if there was a catastrophic failure of Ford Lake Dam? Is that classified?
It would be classified to the general public. However, again, as a holder of their emergency action plan, that information should be in that emergency action plan.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't want to dominate it. Any of the other guys here, or participants, have some questions?
I would like to opt in and ask a couple of questions, sir.
Sure.
For Mark. Go ahead, Paul.
Am I up?
Yeah, you
okay. Mark.
Yes, sir.
Mark?
Yeah, he hears you.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't hear him. I have fished Sanford Lake and Wixom Lake, both very good lakes, fishing lakes, both of them. Tremendous fishing population in both of those. However, it is my opinion that both of those lakes were very similar in construction to Belleville Lake. And I'm a little bit nervous about the same type of construction as to when all these dams were built. And of course, we all know what happened in Midland, almost destroyed the city of Midland and did a great deal of damage there. And I would be very concerned if we had an issue here with Ford Lake letting go and also overflowing Belleville Lake. And the dam may not give away, but it would be one hell of an overflow of water over top of that lake, which would probably wash away the dam structure. And I'm also concerned about the fact that the Sanford Lake showed just a small spigot of water coming out about halfway down the dam for a period of time, and it finally ruptured because of the amount of water behind it. And I'm curious as to how safe the Edison Lake, Belleville Lake Dam is at this point. And you mentioned high hazard, and I'm concerned about wave action. Could you explain to me how deep under the surface of the water does wave action go against that dam?
Well, I'm not familiar with the dam upstream. I think is the one you're speaking of. A wave action generally has the impact at the surface. And it's mostly concerning for dams that have earthen embankments. It's like David was alluding to before. Once you have water going over the top of an earthen embankment, it does have a tendency to erode, and which leads to more erosion and ultimately dam failure. So what you have when you have an earth embankment and you're near full pond or near the crest of the dam, you could have wave action from what might be a storm or wind that's starting to blow water over the crest of the dam that could start that erosion pattern that could lower the crest of the dam and then lead to a failure. So yeah, wave action is generally what happens at the surface, like what we've seen, and we're repairing it. You know, there's a riprap section of the earth embankment on French Landing Dam that just from the wave action at the surface has kind of washed and knocked the riprap down a little bit below the surface. So we're going to have to put more riprap there to fill in that gap. The riprap there is there as armor protection for the earth embankment. So we'll restore that. But now I've never heard where wave action was of any concern below the surface. It's at the surface, or maybe just below the surface.
Oh, okay, very good. Now I have one other question. Since it appears to me that the Sanford Lake Dam and the Wixom Lake Dam were very similar construction to the Belleville Lake Dam. And in the Sanford Dam, it started just a little seep of water about halfway down the dam. What type of protection is there for the Belleville Lake Dam to prevent a little, just looks like a water hose squirting out about halfway down the Sanford Lake Dam? And if I were to see that on the Belleville Lake Dam, you know, I would go running with bullhorns. But what protection is there on the Belleville Lake Dam and the possibility of it having a small seepage like that, which will eventually enlarge, and as you'll see, it'll all cave in at one point, and then there'll be a gaping hole there for the dam to empty?
Yeah, so I'm certainly not a dam design expert, but they are designed to not have leaks and holes in them like that. It's a part of our surveillance and monitoring plan to go out and make regular inspections of earth embankments and the what we call the groin areas, which are the areas where the earth embankment meets the embankments, the natural embankments or the rock abutments on either side of the dam. So you know, it's built into the design of the dam. Most of those earth embankment dams have a clay core or some other type of impervious core that prevents water from penetrating through there. And then they have what's called filters, which is basically various grades of rock material to protect that impervious core and keep it in place, and also protect it from wave action and external forces. So what keeps it from springing a leak, I think, is what you're asking me, and it's basically the design, the construction, and how well it's taken care of and really monitored. If something does happen, and it does for whatever reason start to have a seep or leak, then those things are deeply monitored and investigated to determine, you know, what the next steps may need to be.
Okay, during the design of Belleville Lake, and I'm sure you have access to that, does it also have a clay core in the middle, and how thick is that clay core, and is there any way of checking it?
We do have the design, I think. Not being a direct owner and of course not being relatively new, we'd have to look into that to see if the design drawings are still available. I feel surely that they are, based on the documentation I have read from the previous Part 12 inspections. But I don't know if it's a clay core or not. I can't answer that question. I apologize. And I don't know if it was, how thick it would be. So it really, it's just a specific design questions I don't have.
Very good. I'm finished, Chair.
I get a few more.
Chairman Brownlee, when you get a minute, I've got a couple questions as well. This is Peter.
Right ahead, right now.
So Mark, thanks for the information. You mentioned inspections or the high risk, and I get it that it's a high risk area because downstream there's potential to be a lot of damage if the dam does fail. When was the last time the dam was inspected? You said that it's in great shape, and I believe you. But when was the last time it was inspected, and is that inspection report available to the township? I'm gathering that that might be one of those protected information documents. But is that something that it's available to the township so we can have some comfort on the condition of the dam? That might answer some of the Representative White's questions on the condition of it.
Sure. It was inspected in 2019.
Okay.
That's last year. I'm sure as the co-licensee and the owner of the dam, if they don't have an inspection of the report, they can absolutely have an inspection, a copy of the report.
I have a copy of the report and I've reviewed it.
Great. Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Can it be shared, the result, or just satisfactory, or we're good?
I think Mark said it best. It is operating as designed and is in good working order.
Great. That's all I had, Chairman Brownlee.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Okay, I want to go back to be clear on this. It appears that the dam itself, and this is what I didn't understand at first, has kind of basically two ratings. I mean, one, which is the impact in case of a catastrophic failure, and we're a high hazard classification, and we will probably always be a high hazard classification. I don't see that one changing based on our understanding. The other rating, though, is of the integrity of the dam itself, correct? Isn't there another rating that says, you know,
You listening?
Yeah.
There's not to my knowledge, no.
Oh, there isn't. Well, okay, but what I'm looking for, I guess, is there certainly is a regular inspection. I don't know if the state does this or whatever, of the dam facility itself and the berm, the integrity of it.
The FERC does inspection as they did last year. We
Okay.
do the annual inspection with them, and every 5 years we hire an independent consultant
Or 12.
to also do a third-party independent inspection and report.
And what was the result of the latest or last inspection? What are we rated in terms of that? Is that public knowledge?
Yeah, Matt, you just said it. It's working as designed and no outstanding concerns. There are some recommendations regarding, like I'd mentioned, replacing the riprap where it had washed down, doing some gate inspections, patch some eroded concrete, things like that. But no major findings, no issues.
Yeah, and I will just add that the replacement of the concrete riprap or the stone riprap that is on the embankments isn't something that was just discovered or is something that we only do once in a while. We've actually, since I've been at the township in 2015, I think we've done that twice already, and this will be the third time. So this is something we regularly, the township regularly works with the co-licensee to refresh. This is a regular maintenance item that's done. So it's not something that we only do if the report calls it out. It's something that our fantastic dam operator, Joe Nera, who's out there all the time, if he sees something that looks that it needs to be more interest be put into it, Eagle Creek or the dam operator will go out, look at it, make an assessment, and then we set up and start putting more riprap in. That's a really critical item, and we make sure it gets done when it needs to get done on a regular basis.
Matt, who is David Bittenbender? You know him? David Bittenbender Jr. He's a local, I think he lives locally. He's a guy who has,
I think, isn't he?
he,
The name sounds very familiar, but
the local resident seems to have quite a knowledge of dam structure. He's a structural engineer, and he was one that when the locals kind of populated the local website after the Milford incident, and people were saying, "What about our dam?" He kind of gave a status report of his knowledge. I had not heard of him before that. He sounds very knowledgeable, and the reason I think it was Paul had a question about the berm, and he knew enough to say, first of all, there is no evidence of any leaching or seeping ongoing in the berm itself. The berm is a clay core followed by compacted clays, soils, aggregates, and riprap. Again, I was just curious. I haven't, again, he seems to know a lot and provided information in an effort to help quell any rumors or concerns. So that's why I wondered if you knew who this guy was.
I believe I read some of those posts, but I don't frequent social media.
Well, no, believe me, lately I avoided altogether.
I think Commissioner Ross had a question too, I think.
Man, you want to chime? You want to
I
chime
just
in?
had a quick question. Like, we're under the FERC regulations, and you mentioned Army Corps engineers, and we didn't know what Ford Lake regulatory is. How many different regulatory agencies or bodies are there?
Well, there's three major federal agencies: the Army Corps of Engineers, the Bureau of Reclamation, and the FERC.
What was that?
What was the second one?
The Army Corps of Engineers.
No, the second.
The Bureau of Reclamation, U.S. Department of, it's in the.
Okay, what is, that's the first time I've heard that one.
The Bureau of Reclamation, the out west, a lot of the dams out west for irrigation, flood control are managed by the Bureau of Reclamation.
Okay.
The ones managed by FERC deal with hydropower, and then the ones that are left over or for flood control, aren't those mostly handled by Army Corps?
There's a lot handled by Army Corps for sure, and they do handle hydropower. There are several Army Corps facilities that generate hydropower, and they do have their own regulatory body. And then there are the dams and impoundments that don't generate electricity, and they're generally regulated by the state, whatever state they're in.
Okay.
And then the last inspection was in 2019, and you said it's going to be inspected again for the bypass gates this year. Is that correct?
Yes.
So were the bypass gates inspected last year?
No, typically, and this is a hands-on, climb around, look at the gate, close-up inspection of the condition, all in the nooks and crannies and the corners and so forth. That's typically done maybe every 5 years. It depends. It depends on previous inspections, and I'm not sure when the last detailed hands-on inspection of the gates were, but we don't have any suspicion of there being a problem. It's just probably been a while since we've done an inspection, and if there's any visible rust or corrosion or things that are questionable from looking at it from a distance, then we just do a hands-on inspection to get up close and see.
All right. Thank you, Chair.
Any others? Ron? You there, Ron? Ron Merritt?
Hi guys, this is Ryan. Actually, we lost Ron a little bit ago.
Okay. Okay, well, Paul?
Yeah, Paul's here, but I think all the questions that I would be concerned about with the dam is have been pretty well answered, and we probably know and understand that the gatehouse and everything with the concrete there is probably stable, and that the biggest issues that we have to be concerned about is erosion of the dam itself, the earthen part of the dam with the clay interior. And I understand that clay probably doesn't deteriorate, but that dam was built in the 20s, I think early 20s. So that's it's almost 100 years old. So we have concerns, and we need to have regular inspections by very knowledgeable people, especially on the dam itself, and not so much the gatehouse, I think, but it's critical, especially after seeing what happened in Midland County with the two dams up there. And that shook me up on both of those dams. As I said, I was familiar with them and the construction, and I'm sure that they were checked every year, and the construction is almost identical from the appearance as to Belvidere Lake Dam. So I'm very concerned about Belvidere Lake Dam, and I hope to hell it never happens to us, and it'll be a disaster. And I probably could be in the flood zone if that did happen, because the river's just a few hundred yards away from me, and it's, you know, maybe I would have water in my backyard. I don't know. But we need to be critical. The Environmental Commission needs to keep a constant check on the inspections on that dam, and to have complete and total knowledge of the dam construction viability moving forward. Because, you know, like I said, that dam was probably 100 years old, and the technology today is 10 times, a million times greater than what it was in 1924. I think it was built, or something, somewhere thereabouts. So as the Environmental Commission, we need to have complete knowledge of that dam and the inspections on it.
Was it 1924 it was built?
So it was built at right around that time. However, there was a significant reconstruction that was done at the time that DTE turned it over to the township. In fact, some of the residents who live on the lake paid for a lot of that work through a special assessment district. And so there was a lot of reconstruction work that was done. One of the things that I want to kind of comment on very briefly is something that Mark said to me the other day. He said something interesting, and maybe he can talk about that a little. He said, no dam is identical to another dam. They're all unique. So just the look of a dam compared, Mark, I want to comment on how every dam is different.
Sure. It's, you know, the basic design, as we heard, can be similar. A clay core, earth embankment dam, concrete arch type dam. There's certain types of dams, but every dam's designed differently because of the geology, primarily, of where they're built. They impound a certain amount of water that has to go into the design. The depth goes into the design, and the potential probable maximum flood. You have to design the dam to withstand or be able to manage what you would think to be the maximum inflow would be. So, and that has to do with the watershed. So every dam will have a different size watershed. So there's just a variety of things. And you may know that geology in one area, a couple miles later, miles away, could be quite a bit different. So that would have an impact on the design and the construction of the dam. So they could be similar designs or similar basic designs, but every one of them is uniquely different.
Matt, is Ford Lake Dam older than French Landing?
That I don't know.
I think Henry Ford had it built to generate electricity, I think for his summer home or something on Ford Lake. But I was curious. It's not unimportant, but I don't know. I always thought it was older, but
I'm not 100% sure. It's something I could find out.
I
Chair?
appreciate it.
Chair?
Yes.
David, I just saw, I just did a quick search. It was built in the 1930s. The Ford Lake Dam was.
Oh, so French Landing is older.
It said 30s,
Okay.
1930s, and it's owned and managed by Ypsi Township.
I was right.
Okay.
Matt, you were right.
Okay. All right, others? Hearing none, I'll give it back.
If there's no other questions from the commission, at this time, Ryan, would you like to go through the attendees and see if anyone has a question from the attendees?
Yes, please. So we do not see any hands. Oh, one hand just raised. And yes, Trustee Miller, if you would just state your name and address for the record, and you are free to go.
Hi, everyone. I have a few questions here. So what is the lifespan of the dam? And another question I have is, were there any safety violations or any concerns with the spillway? And also, if there's a lake drawdown, how can we benefit from that? Say, for instance, if there's needed repairs on the structural integrity of the dam, will the lake drawdown be a benefit or a possible problem or challenge of any sort?
I think drawdowns have occurred in the past, primarily, as I understand, to give lakeside residents an opportunity to work on structures that are normally underwater. A drawdown doesn't in itself help the dam or hurt the dam if it's done properly. So, you know, if there was a deficiency that needed to be remediated and it could only be done with the drawdown, then that's what we would do to say, you know, to make whatever repairs might be necessary. But you asked what's the lifespan? There really is not an answer for that. This dam could go on and perform well for another 100 years. Well, I forget what the other question was. I'm sorry.
Were there any safety violations ever? Any concerns with the spillways?
I don't know about ever. I won't answer to ever, but in the last inspection that we had last year, there were no concerns, no safety issues raised.
Is this dam regulated by more than what the state of Michigan? You named a few, but who regulates it?
The FERC. No,
the FERC.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other from the attendees?
We have no more hands up and there is nothing in the chat.
Oh, okay, could I make another comment?
Chair?
Trustee White?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. As I mentioned, I fished both of the dams that failed, and I've also fished several of the Tennessee Valley Authority dams. Now, these are dams that go back miles and miles and miles, and some of the dams are very wide and very expansive, and they can lower those dams as much as 40 or 50 feet when you're expecting huge storms and everything else to come down, so that they can keep that under control. And it appears that those dams are also a similar construction, but I'm sure that with modern technology that they're much stronger and much better built than the dams were built in the 1920s. So maybe a drawdown would be beneficial for us, you know, every couple of years or something, just for inspections and as it goes there for us, so that we have a better idea of what the heck is going on with our lake. And you know, the Tennessee Valley Authority has these dams that can go 40, 50, 60 miles of 2 or 3 rivers into them. And maybe that we should have some type of management of our dam that when we're expecting a strong deluge of rainwater, that maybe we should open the gates a little bit more to regulate the level of the dam to help prevent something happening in the future. So I don't know. I'm not a dam expert, don't pretend to be, but I only know the experiences that I have from being on the water and driving through the south and seeing the other dams, and where you can see they're down 40 feet by the what appears on the lake shore. And certainly that deluge up in Midland County, they had knowledge of it, but probably didn't have the experience of how to handle something like that. And that's something that we need to keep on our mind constantly. Whereas if something were to happen like that, and as we get more than a normal flow, then we should be able to accommodate it. And just by how we actuate the level of Belleville Lake. And I know a lot of lake residents may not agree with it, but it's a choice of monitoring the dam and the water level and having a dam to go kaput. I'm done.
Mark, did you want to comment on that?
Well, I'm not an expert on TVA dam. However, I do know that the TVA was built for flood control. I don't believe that this dam was built for flood control. So that you see, there's very specific reasons why the TVA lowers those reservoirs at certain times of the year. I'm not aware of any value in lowering a reservoir just for periodic inspections. Typically, if we need an underwater inspection of a concrete structure or a gate, we can use divers or ROVs to do that. The dam is designed for the probable maximum flood. It's designed to handle the probable maximum flood. If the FERC said that we should lower the dam, we'll lower the dam. We follow their lead. It's our responsibility to do what they recommend and ask us to do, and we will do that. And it's our responsibility to provide the surveillance and the things necessary to comply with all their regulations. But if they were to ask us to do that, we'd do it.
And I will add that Joe Nera, the local dam operator who's in the dam, and his job is to monitor the levels coming into the lake and through the gates, and he raises and lowers within that 3-inch up or down from 655 to balance out and make sure the dam is protected from storm flows. And there's a whole science behind it. And Joe and the team from Eagle Creek work with other partners in the dam network upstream and downstream to make sure water is flowing properly. There's constant communication. So all the things you're requesting that we do for raising and lowering the flows for storms, that's already built into how we operate dam Eagle Creek. So we have and everyone on the lake should be extremely thankful for Joe Nera and for him. He's there every day. He cares about the lake. He is invested in the lake. And Mark said to me in our discussion that dam operators are a special breed. They love their dams, they love their lakes, and they love it just as much as the people that live on them. So we're very lucky to have him, and he's the guy that's keeping track and keeping the water levels where they're supposed to be.
Additional question for Mark. Mark, when French Landing Dam's floodgates are opened at maximum capacity, and I don't even know if we ever do that or if we often do that, but when we're releasing absolutely as much water as we can, is there flooding downstream? Or damage?
I can't answer specifically, David. I'd have to look at our emergency action plan to determine that. It very well likely would be, because the dam is designed to handle the probable maximum flood.
Yep.
And if you have a probable maximum flood, you're going to have rivers out of their banks.
Yeah, I'd assume that. And I don't know if we've, got to that point in the past or not. But it leads up to my question: if in fact having to go, maybe we have a 200-year rain or 500-year like they had up in Midland. If we got to the point where we had to open that to capacity, knowing that there would be potentially some flooding and property damage downstream, do you have, since the liability sounds like it comes back to the township, do you have to get approval to do that from the township?
No, that's a part of the emergency action plan.
Okay.
Is when we have, obviously, as you heard in this discussion, we don't want dam to go over the top, water to go over the top of the dam.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So we have to operate those bypass gates to ensure that the water does not go over the top of the dam. And we will do that. When we get to certain levels of flow, we activate certain levels of the emergency action plan.
Okay.
And that's actually what happened in 2018. The dam operator and Eagle Creek initiated the emergency action plan because there was a large storm and a heavy flow of water through the system, and downstream police and people in the plan were contacted. There was no threat of the dam structurally failing, but there was a potential for high water. And under the rules in the plan, it states at this level, you do this, here's what you do. And I'm not going to go into specifics, but you notify everybody downstream before it happens, as soon as you can notify them, so people can be prepared if something happens. And that's part of the emergency action plan. And that's what happened, I think, if my memory serves correctly, in 2018, when we had a lot of water come through in a very short period of time. The dam had to open the gate a little bit more than usual, which initiated the action plan to notify Huron Township and a couple other downstream communities, saying, hey, heads up, we might have some higher water. There are actions you have to do in your EAP, and then they move forward and did those. Not just because we activate the plan doesn't mean the dam's going to fail or that people are going to be flooded out of their homes. It means we're doing exactly what we're supposed to do to keep people safe.
Okay. Okay, back to everybody else again. Any additional questions?
Ryan, does anybody else have any questions?
At this moment, no.
Mark, on behalf of the commission, I want to appreciate your time and making yourself available to us. It's been a valuable discussion. So, Matt, I will turn it over to you at this point.
Mark, I also want to thank you for giving us some of your evening. I know how busy you are with being responsible for as many dams as you are and your team. I want to thank you and Eagle Creek for being a great partner. Thank you for coming out.
Sure. Happy to do it. I know that these are nervous times for folks, and the better you all can understand, and folks that live around the lakes can understand, the better off we are. We don't want misinformation out there. It doesn't really help anybody. So I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark, from Trustee White.
You're welcome.
Moving on to the Iron Bell Trail update, Matt.
Oh, I forgot about that.
We have a lot of activity going on with the Iron Bell Trail. As we last spoke in February, we had multiple sections of the Iron Bell Trail being put together and had grants for. And then we had a little something right around St. Patrick's Day. It wasn't a hangover, no, it was the COVID-19 started. And what COVID-19 has done at the state level, as you guys have probably seen, is made funding a little tighter. And there's a lot of unknowns with the funding right now. The township has been actively pursuing and receiving state grants from the Michigan Trust Fund and other state grant opportunities. And there were several grants that we received that we have been notified have been put on hold by the state until they determine what's going to happen with their state budgets. So right now our section of from Elwell to, not Elwell, Edge, what is that?
Edgemont.
To, yes, thank you, Trustee White. Edgemont to Martinsville, where we were going to put that section in. We had a $300,000 grant from the Michigan Trust Fund with $100,000 match from the township. We have the plans ready. We were ready to get going. We luckily have already gotten the money for the engineering and all that, so that's all paid for. But that grant's just been put on hold until the state determines. It's not been taken away, and it's not going. We don't think it's gone, but it's been put on hold because the state has to look at revenue and priorities with state funding. Education, healthcare, the emergency funding that they need to help the communities and people that have been affected, but not only by COVID-19, but by the flooding that's happened in the state. So that grant is kind of just, that project's kind of just sitting in limbo right now. And our Parks and Rec department is working very, very closely with the state and trying to find out what's going to happen. However, with, as you know, at the state, they're busy right now with keeping everybody safe and healthy. And then they're going to figure out what we're going to do with the money on these other things later. So that section's kind of on a hold right now. We did receive 2 other grants from the state for engineering work to be done on sections around Huron River Drive to Haggerty Road, and the area where Huron River Drive goes, the little curve by Sandy's Marina. That engineering money was, we awarded that to be, done by our engineer, and our engineers got some of the design work done, but when the notice came out, that was also put on hold. But it's, don't tell anybody if it's all done. It's just, we have to get permission to move forward from the state. The project that is going on from the Washtenaw County line into Van Buren Park, which is about $1.2 million of funding. That project is still up in the, that one is still being worked on. So the Iron Barrel Trail from that section is still being worked on. There, the grant was already awarded. It had a lot of private money from other foundations and other private grants that we're getting for that. So that project's slowly moving along. And the bigger ticket item, the 2 remaining big ticket items, the saddle, which is the area at Van Buren Park that goes down and back up, that connects the front part of Van Buren Park to the back part, where we were awarded a $500,000 grant from Wayne County through this CDBG program. That grant is, and that award, the county is going out to bid for the paving of the saddle. They're putting we provided the engineering specs and detail sheets for the bid package. All Wayne County has to do is put the bid package together in their format and put it out. We have been told that project is moving forward. So one of the goals that I wrote down on the first day that I started at the township was to pave the saddle so that we could use the back portion safely. And gosh darn it, we're going to get there. Hopefully, keep our fingers crossed. The other big ticket is the rebuilding of the bridge from the back half, the eastern half of Van Buren Park to Denton Road, which would connect the area by Harbor Club Apartments to Van Buren Park. You wouldn't be able to drive a car there. We would have emergency service there, but that project is well on its way as well. And my understanding that's being funded through private grant private grant funding from the Ralph Wilson Foundation and others. We are continuing to work with them to the design of that bridge. When I have more design details, that project will be something we will bid out to through the township board of trustees. So they'll get to select a contractor to do that construction and project work, but that has yet to be put on hold. That's still moving forward. This is the Iron Bell Trail is a fantastic project. I'm very excited to be a part of it. Some of the sections, we always knew some of the sections would take longer than others. And it's a lot of work to get this 8+ mile trail done through our community. But we're going to get there. So with that update, I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Okay, Matt,
Yes.
what type of a bridge will go over the creek there in the gulch? Will it be wooden?
We have 3 design options that we looked at. The first was a concrete bridge structure, very similar to what they have at U of M over the Huron River.
Okay.
So it has concrete abutments, concrete base, and it's like it looks like rusted steel beams.
Mm-hmm.
Start out being shiny, within a week being outside, they have that weathered look. That's the most cost-effective and longest lifespan product so it had the biggest bang for the buck. It is the most stable for the money. It is the longest lasting for the money, and quite frankly, it was the cheapest option. So and it's actually very attractive. The designers are working right now on the design for the bridge, and I hope to have something for you guys to look at soon.
Okay,
Will it be 6 foot wide? Will it be 6 foot wide, Matt?
You'll be able to drive. They'll be able to drive emergency vehicles over it.
Oh, okay, okay.
any other questions from anyone? Okay, hearing none. Matt, moving on to MS4 permit update.
Actually, can we, Elizabeth Renault is here to talk about park projects and improvements. Kind of give you guys an update on parks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did jump. Yep.
Good evening, environmental commissioners. So I'm here to just give you a quick update on the reopening status of all the township parks. So Van Buren Park, Quirk Park, Riggs Park, and French Landing will all be opening on June 22nd. Park patrons are asked to follow social distancing guidelines and practice proper hygiene to limit transmittal of COVID-19. All pavilion rentals have been canceled. The Parks and Recreation Department have mailed out refunds to all pavilion renters. Play structures at each of the parks will be open on June 22nd when the park opens. They won't be sanitized, and so we need to make sure that people that are using those are still practicing social distancing. At Van Buren Park, the restrooms will be open in the front, but the bathrooms in the back loop will not be open. The beach area will also be closed for the remainder of summer at Van Buren Park. At Quirk Park, we are excited to announce that the splash pad will be opening back up on July 6th. The restrooms at Quirk Park will also be open on June 22nd. At Riggs Park and French Landing Park, the restrooms will both remain closed. And Haggerty Sub Park will be remain closed throughout this time. It's a little bit smaller and we can't manage social distancing there, so they are keeping that closed.
So one of the most important things to remember is I know how the people, the users of the lake like to congregate at the sandbar and then go onto the beach. There is a big sign out there on the beach. I went out there today and looked at it that is reminding the users of the lake that the beach is closed. It's because of its size, we can't guarantee that people will stay social distance there, and we want to be safe on the properties that we have. So even for the people on the lake, we don't want people to be coming back onto the beach right now until we're confident we can keep people safe in that area. So, any other questions for Elizabeth?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, hearing none. Let's move on to our next item 4.
The MS4 permit. Back in 2017, we applied for a renewal of our MS4 stormwater permit, which is a stormwater permit for the properties that the township owns that discharge stormwater. So that would be the fire stations, township hall, our parks, and a handful of other properties that we own. We filled out that permit. It also has a lot of requirements for public education, public outreach, good housekeeping practices, all the things that you're supposed to do to keep the stormwater that's leaving your site clean, making sure that you're checking to make sure your pipes aren't misconnected, want to make sure that your facilities stormwater outlets are clean, make sure your detention ponds are in good working order. We, of course, comply with all these things as members of the Alliance of Downriver Watersheds, and we also members of the Alliance of Rouge Communities, since our community falls in both the Rouge Watershed and the Huron Watershed. So we are members of two organizations that help assist us in a collaborative effort to meet our permit requirements. So we're very lucky. As a community, we get a lot of benefit from being part of those groups to meet this MS4 permit. As I said, we applied in 2017. and we got our first response back from the state in January on the permit application. We made some adjustments into some of the things, and our draft permit is now ready. So you will see a draft permit for Van Buren Township's MS4 permit on the state's website. It is very, what's the word? It's very technical. It talks about things that are very technical in terms of the federal permit regulations and requirements. A lot of the specifics of the actions that we are responsible for are not in that permit. They are part of our stormwater pollution prevention initiatives, our SWIPI, that's what it's called, as well as our stormwater action plan, which is also a document that is a sister document to the MS4 permit. This group is a lot of the requirements that the township has are met in our MS4 permit are met by some of the activities that this committee or this commission does and has done in the past. So we're going to be agreeing with the, after a long review of the permit the last week or so, we're happy with the draft permit. No conditions have changed on our MS4 permit. It's almost exactly the same as the previous 4-year permit that we had that actually went on for 8 years because it took a while. So we will be allowing them to draft, post our draft permit for public notice here in the next week or so. At the end of next week, they'll post it on the website and it'll be available for public viewing and comment. It doesn't really have to do with the lake. It doesn't have to do with the river. It doesn't have to do with any of that stuff. It has to do with how stormwater leaves our properties at the township hall. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I wanted to let you know you'll see something on the website, on the state website. And some of you who get notices from, I think Peter gets notices from the state on things. I think David does. You'll see, you might get a letter that says it's up for public notice. So, just wanted to keep you in the. Any questions?
If we have none, we also have a little, an opportunity here for any other item for open discussion. Matt, if we just went purely by schedule, we would get back together here probably by Zoom, but hard to say, on July 15th. Now, typically we, suspended July and August because of summer agenda, but then we're also way behind. So do you foresee that let's at least keep it open on our calendars, that there's a fair likelihood we may meet again next month?
Yes, I believe, and Elizabeth or Ryan will correct me, but I believe that the state's order allowing us to do digital meetings ends on June 30 or July 30. Ryan, Elizabeth?
I do not know that actually. I can look it up though.
So it is my preference for us to have this Zoom meeting if there's still COVID-19 in place, because the township is restricting meetings at the township hall meeting rooms because we can't keep social distance in those rooms. And this allows for the largest participation possible for our people. As long as the state allows us to have meetings like this, we will do so. I don't know if there'll be any agenda items on the 15th, but I'd be happy to keep it as an active date. And as we get closer, we can make that decision.
Yeah, Matt, a little confused. It says state's order allowing us to do this. I mean, I could see the state's order allowing you to meet in person. I'm a little puzzled by that. I mean, what if we said format and wanted to do it permanently?
So we as a commission could potentially choose to do that. But under the executive orders from the governor, it allows for Zoom meetings to take place and count as voting action meetings. And there's a lot of rules that go with these Zoom. We can do somebody can call in and conference call in under the Open Meetings Act and some other rules. You weren't, before this happened, you weren't really allowed to do these public meetings on Zoom. So there's actually an executive order that allows us to do these meetings, like the board meetings and the planning commission meetings. The executive order from the governor allows them to take actions and pass motions through virtual meetings. And so we're following even though we could probably still do it because we're just an advisory commission in some way, shape, or form, we like to think of our commissions as, all the same. And so we're treating them all the same. When the time comes for us to go back, we'll all go back. If we're all still meeting this way, we'll still meet this way, based on the governor and the executive order.
Okay,
And-
based on, again, I would just suggest to all the commission members just to block in the 15th in the event of, so if you can do that. So anybody else from or anything else from anybody? Hey, I just went pretty good. A few little hiccups there. I don't think we have Ron with us, but I'm glad he checked in at roll call because it kept us with a quorum anyway. So, if we meet next month, it might be in this format again. We'll know ahead of time. So, Ben, Pete, Paul,
David, thank you.
Participate. I love that background, Pete. I'm looking for something, maybe the pyramids or something next time you'll be broadcast. But
There you go.
I like it. Matt, anything?
No, I just want to thank the people that, thank you guys for going to a very successful first Zoom meeting. I want to thank all our attendees who were listening in on YouTube and on the Zoom call themselves. The commission really appreciates your participation. And if you do have any other questions for the commission, you feel free to contact David Brownlee or myself. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have. So.
And Deanna, I know you're busy behind the scenes, probably there somewhere quietly. So thank you for being our secretary for this meeting. With that
Before we adjourn, could I ask Ryan to call me on my township cell phone after the meeting is over?
No problem, Trustee White.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I want to see if we can get my iPad to working.
Okay, anything else? With that being said, would somebody like to motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
And second.
Peter? Those in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Success.
very
Have a good
much.
night.
Thank you. Have a good evening.